that people train, work with the team. That's Sir Clive Woodward, who became knighted when England won the World Cup in rugby in 2003. But he spoke on a podcast I heard about how he matched players in his team, particularly the calm players and the players who he knew had these very active, aggressive chimps. And it was the role of the other player to intervene when the chimp started coming out. So there's all that sort of stuff. Now, teams under stress, again, I'm going to come back to this thing about arrogant people, people who make people too scared to speak up, why it's so important. And I'm going to play you a great video here by Tom Carl. Tom Carl is an American pediatric cardiac surgeon, one of the best known in the world, and he gives his assessment of teams under stress.
There are many times when I felt out of control. It's usually chain of events that happens, starting with one small thing that leads ultimately to some big and terrible thing. And there's a lot of room for error in a pediatric cardiac operation, and there are many people involved. I think what I could recommend about a moment like that is if you can't keep it together, neither can anyone else. And lashing out at the only people on the planet who can get you out of that situation at that moment is definitely the wrong strategy. And I think as surgeons, many of us have missed that in our life training.
So it's a really important point to this whole theme of speaking up and people suppressing that. I'm now going to move on to how do we deal with things after things go wrong. And things will go wrong to all of us in the best institutions. Arthur Gillis, as hotel CEO, talks about these being moments of truth, about running to the problem, leaders running to the problem, apologizing, shower people with information, if necessary, giving people your phone number, and then a culture when you look at things to get better, not bitter. And I think that's really something I try and take away with me. And when there's been a lot of talk about a just culture. I think a blame-free culture on its own isn't the right, I don't think that serves anybody. It's about a just culture. And so to look at a just culture, one needs to look at things through the eyes of what happened. And whenever I do a serious incident review, I try and follow this philosophy. First of all, don't believe what you first hear. And don't believe what you first hear from your most senior colleague, okay? Because your people will quickly give you the 3-minute summary of what happened, and that may not have anything to do with what happened. Just say, we're going to investigate, I'm going to take an open mind, and I'm going to try and look at it through the eyes of those that had happened. And I'm going to give you another industry example that you can take back to your health industry. Singapore Airlines flying into Taiwan, experienced captain. Comes in, there are 2 runways, a long runway at the top, a short. He knows the airport well. He knows the next night when he's flying out, the weather is going to be terrible. He's got a full load, and he requests permission to take off on the long runway and gets permission. He taxis out, the weather's terrible. He turns sharp right onto the short runway, which has all equipment, crashes there. Half the passengers sadly and tragically die, and he survives, and he's shipped back to face manslaughter and murder charges. Now, if we look at the runway in the light of day, like we do when we look at incidents, and you look there and you think, the short runway's there, the long runway's way out there, maybe this was negligent. Maybe we can't have blame-free. Maybe this was a case of negligence. And that's the problem. We look at things in the light of day when we look back. But air traffic investigators are on the scene within minutes or hours of a major incident. And these were the photos that were taken that night. These were the lights guiding the pilot out to the runway. All the lights down, going straight out there into the black abyss were out that night to the main runway. So by looking at through that pilot's eyes, you can see he probably did what any other pilot would have done that night. And so one needs to try and do that. The other thing after something goes wrong is how do you achieve reconciliation with both with your patients? This is Martin Brumley, is a pilot who I've got to know, whose wife tragically died in a couldn't intubate, couldn't ventilate scenario. And he never sought to blame any of the anesthetic or staff, but always felt we should introduce human factors training that the pilots have into healthcare, and this wouldn't have happened, and that's been his mission since then. But we had a terrible incident where we lost a 16-year-old girl in a routine procedure of removing a bar for a cosmetic procedure, which really was a very, very tragic incident for us. And when I was seeing the family to give the report, I called Martin because I was so terrified about that discussion. And the things he told me were exactly what happened in the meeting, and I thought I want to share that with others. The first thing he said is, do not try and control the meeting. You can't control the meeting. It is going to run like it's going to run. The second is just share everything that you can and be completely open and honest. And if you're there with a colleague, which I was, the medical director, don't start making excuses. There are always buts in these complex things. But have a cue with your person you're with that they give you a good kick under the table when you start going into excuse mode. That's obviously if it's relevant. And expect all reactions. When I did that, there was a family of 20 people, the whole extended family were there. Some people were screaming at you, some didn't say a word, some walked out the room. Just expect any and all of those reactions. It's not personal against you, it's the grief of the situation. And be prepared to meet again. And so I think those were important lessons. The other thing is that we shouldn't forget our colleagues, and there's a lot of talk about the second victim and being able to support colleagues. This here was alive. I don't know if you saw the movie or read the book. Uruguay rugby team crushed in the Andes, 1972. They were stranded for 74 days. The only way they survived, 12 of them, was by eating their dead colleagues who were their friends in the end. But this was them in the plane at the time. There's Pedro Algorta. There's Pedro Algorta 40 years later. And when the Chilean miner thing happened, if you remember a few years ago, they all phoned each other and said, we got to go help. We know what it's like to be in that position. And that's what they did. They flew out there and they brought this incredible hope to the site and spoke to the miners underground. And it's that thing, if you've been through something, and we've all been through it, you're probably in the best position to support colleagues who are going through a terrible thing. This is German air traffic control, where they train a number of their air traffic controllers to support people in that situation. This is Julie Teo, a nurse who spoke at our event. And Julie had mixed up a epidural infusion with a young girl in labor who landed up tragically dying. She landed up in a mental hospital for a long time and landed up being charged with manslaughter. But Julie describes how all her colleagues said, Julie, you know, if you need our help, we're here for you, give us a call. But when people are going through a terrible incident like that, just telling them, call me, they're never going to make the call. They are going through such trauma. You need to make the effort. You've got to phone them. And we recently had a fatal morphine overdose in our ICU in the last 2 years. And I can tell you, the people involved in that didn't work for 6 months afterwards. And I still don't know. I can't still be sure of how those people are coping now. So you have to support your teams because these things can happen to the best of us being human. Okay, I'm now coming towards the end about achieving excellence and some misconceptions about teams. So one way of trying to achieve excellence is this continuous assessing of yourself. And perhaps one of the best flying teams, aerobatic teams, is the Red Arrows in the UK. And they are fanatical debriefers. So when they come down after a show, even when it's to the Queen, they do a quick debrief. They go through safety issues, and then they put in a video. They're lucky they got a video of all their shows, and they look at it. And they sit sometimes in the pub. It's done very informally, quite casually. They never refer to each other's name, but you're Red 7, Red 6, or Red 1. And I'll give you a little video of the one of the Red Arrows who spoke, showing how they do it as a method.
We talk about the change of colours in the smokes, major problems or major mistakes, we get fined £1, so this can be an expensive process, but it all goes into the social fund at the end. We now move, and as the smoke comes on, we'd assess the smoke as well in a second. Don't forget £1 is on any late smokes. So it can be very competitive. Pretty good smokes there. And pause, please. That's good. Right, that's pretty much on the crowd front 90 there. Obvious mistakes, I'd say red 7 is a little bit outside the line. You can see my nose perfect with red leader.
So it's that type of sort of doing it in a light-hearted, serious way, constantly assessing yourself and improving. We sort of, in our cardiac unit, we have a meeting every Friday where we go through the good, the bad, and the ugly of the week before. We do it in the same standard way each week. So we go through that sequence of events. The first thing we look at is how many patients went through this week cardiac surgery in children without any complication. So that was that week, and then we can have a run chart to see the no complication rate. We then look at save of the week, and I write out to the team the Thursday night, tell us about a colleague who's done something great or a save of the week. So there was a cardiologist who had to come in and put an RVOT, a stent in the right ventricular outflow tract in a 2.6 kilo baby at 6 in the morning. So we made a thank you, a very good job, and a little bit of a joke about that. Then we look at our patient flow and how full the units are there any cancellations, refused patients we couldn't take. And then we got about 10 of these dashboards, and we show up the time since the last line infection, wound infection, serious incident, drug errors. And if that week any of them go red, then we would discuss that. So here we had a readmission to the ICU within 48 hours. We consider that a failure, and we would then discuss that case and go through organizational issues, equipment issues, team issues, what happened, what could be done. And then we would look at these Q sums to look at, is that a one-off, or are we starting to see a cluster of that event? So this is sort of our readmissions over the last 5 years, and we can track that. So it's a very live, real-time issue. I'm now coming to the end because I'm back at Formula One. And so we asked Ross Brawn, who's probably one of the greatest leaders in Formula One's won 3 world championships with different teams. What does it take to win a Formula One world championship? And when he went to Ferrari from Benetton with Michael Schumacher, they hadn't won a championship in 21 years and then won 8 in a row. And each part of the team, every week the Ferrari would fail, it would be something, and the aero team would blame the engine team or vice versa. And he called everybody together and he said, guys, it's not an engine, it's not a chassis, it's not an aero package, it's a Ferrari. And I always keep that in my mind for 2 things. When we think of a patient, we often get stuck in our organ systems, cardiac, whatever. And when we're in teams, we often go, damn anaesthetists, damn surgeons, damn ICU people. And it's not. You've got to see yourself as a Ferrari. And so his aim is he tells each bit of the team has to strive to be the best they can, but never at the expense of anybody else in the team. And that's a very good philosophy. And I'm going to, my CEO, though, keeps telling me that perfection can also be the evil of good. So one needs to also have reality checks within healthcare. I'm finally going to end now with sort of some misconceptions about teamwork. And this is Mark Durant, who's an ethnographer, professor in the Judge Business School in Cambridge. And he goes and he lives with teams, and then he describes how they perform. So he lived with the Cambridge boat race team for 6 months leading up to the big boat race. He lived with probably the best medical team at Camp Bastion, who were involved in the Afghanistan war. And he describes the 5 misconceptions. The first is problems arise because there is no conflict in a team. So we always think if there's conflict, it's bad. It's how that conflict is happening. If people are sitting screaming and blaming each other, it's bad. But you do need some conflict, or else you won't have challenge in your team if it's all too cozy. The turnover of staff is good, and yes, to a degree that is, but actually stable teams are also very good teams, as studies from NASA have shown. If we get along better, we perform better. There's studies showing that grumpy orchestras perform better than happy orchestras, so it's that mixture of things. And then this one, we always worry our team's got too much workload and that's affecting performance, and that is true at when you cross some line. But board teams also are very dangerous teams. They've got too much time to start discussing and planning. And lastly, teamwork comes naturally to people, and that's a misnomer. So I think that's probably where I'm going to end, and we'll take questions later. So thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Allen, and my friends will agree that it was one of the very innovative presentations. I think I've seen for the first time, which comparing with the Formula One racing and the airlines and all other businesses, we are learning from them. And because what I know of is that if the 10 lakh airline travelers are there, only one person suffers from some damage. But while in healthcare industry, 300 people who enter the healthcare delivery systems, one person out of that gets a damage, So that is what we are more risky than Formula One racing or airline traveling,
Healthcare is very difficult to fix. It's
yes,
almost impossible.
And it's very nice. And I will request, in case any questions, please.
Well, if at the end anybody wants to chat, with pleasure. Thank you
Okay.
very much for your time and hospitality. Thanks.
Next speaker is Mr. Tim Delkop, Advisor, Dispolin, Imperial Director, Tim Glad Consulting. Tim is regarded as a global expert in the field of infection prevention and sterilization. Great. In his last role, Tim was responsible for global technical support and regulatory affairs and has been working in the medical field for more than 40 years. He has been a member of Dutch Norm Group from the day of foundation in 1980 and has participated in the German, Dane and French AFNOR. Since 1988, he was the convener of TC102, WG4 packing materials. Over the years, he has visited many hospitals globally and spoke on numerous international conferences. During his stay in India, he has spoken in various conventions, visited several hospital surgeons in Delhi, Chennai and Mumbai. Tim is attending the INDA, EDNA and SBA meetings in control in the role of chairman. Now I welcome Tim to deliver his lecture. But we are very thankful to Tim, you have come all the way. And as you are an expert in infection and an outsider, not a doctor, it will be great to listen to you.
I hope you will enjoy it. Thank you very much for the introduction. Good afternoon, evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to try to give you a little bit of information, but it's based on 40 years of experience in this field. No, I will not show you statistics. I will not show you graphs, which in 80% of the cases you do not read what is on it because there are too many figures. And statistical evidence is not one of the things which are put in my experience. Patient safety, though, has been all my career the most important thing and my passion. Although I was working for a company, it still can be your passion. And if you're not working in the sterilization department, for instance. 30 minutes is not a long time for 40 years of experience, but I will give you some highlights and headliners to make your point up. And there's something else I would like to say to you is I'm not here to tell you that you do things wrong. I know those white men who are coming from abroad and from Europe, they're going to tell you how you have to do it, and we do it all much better, and all those kind of things. But I don't think that's the right thing to do. In Europe, the Rome was not built in 24 hours either. So you need time to bring it up to a certain level. Now, today I'm going to talk about the global lessons in infection prevention and sterilization. And I hope that in my case everything will work and we'll have sound, and not like this morning that the film didn't work. So, first of all, what I would like to do is to thank the Apollo organizations for having me here. But at the same time, I like to thank Dispoline for bringing me all the way from Brussels to Chennai to have this talk. Yeah, you're going to see a lot of things, and they have not been Googled. And I'm asking myself from time to time if it is worthwhile and if it is the best thing to Google everything, because you're never sure what is true and what is not true. And that is a problem. Everybody can publish it on Google. So, experience. Now, yes, I'm Dutch. I'm from Amsterdam, on the other side of the big river. I'm not going through that list for what I all have done. It's not of an importance. But what makes me very happy is that I have become the honorary member of the Dutch Association of Sterilization Managers. And in 40 years, there are only 6 people who got the honorary membership. That means that I have done something right in my life. Not everything, something. So, yes, I have been since 2007. I've come to India. I've seen your wonderful country. Probably I've seen more of your whole country than you all have done here. And there are so many things. But I had one thing on my bucket list. And that was making a picture of a tiger in the wild area. Because I am a photographer. That's my biggest hobby. Did I lose something? Oh, I'm sorry. I hope it keeps on working. The batteries don't fall out. So, we have a current global situation. And I'm not going in details through them all. But we are facing a very difficult situation. And that is that we are resistant to antibiotics. And one of the reasons is that we have abused antibiotics in the Western world, all over the place. And lately, we know as well that all the food we eat, we just put everywhere. We put antibiotics to grow the chickens faster, etc., etc. But one of the things which I like to line out is that, oh, sorry, I wanted to point something. Can we go back? Right. Is Zika. But today, we're facing again an H5N1 explosion. Well, let's be honest. Be careful, it's not an explosion yet. Although in May you had 23,000 chickens which were killed because H5N1. And today, when I was to my room, I just put the telly on for a couple of seconds. And yes, you closed the zoo and you closed as well, and I have to be correct and specific, Huis Kar Dierpark was closed because they found H5N1. Enough about this all. It is, we call it in Europe maybe a doom scenario. I don't like this thing which is sticking in my face. So, yes, we have an antimicrobial drug resistance, AMR, which is a problem. Let's be honest. We are resistant to them. We do not know anymore what kind of antibiotic we have to use. Some facts about AMR. Current global plus minus 700,000 deaths per annum. 700,000 people dying. We probably, and you have to be careful with these kind of things, because I don't have a glass and bowl or a crystal ball to see what's going to happen in the future. But there are people who think that there probably will be 10 million deaths at that moment of time. We have an enormous resistance to the most and heaviest antibiotic. And over the years, the use has tripled in 5 years. So, impact on the world gross domestic product, GDP, I can't even pronounce it. Do you know what 100.2 trillion is? My God, if we can save a little bit of money there, and that's where I'm trying to get at, then we will save money for the hospitals. And we make the cost affordable. So, yes, we have everywhere we have HAIs. And let's be honest, every hospital I visit in the world, every surgeon I talk to in the world, are there any surgeons in the room here? Just put your finger up. Okay, I'll be careful, I won't. But we never have infections. No, we don't have infections. Why is then, even in developing countries, in Europe, in the United States of America, why is there 12% of infections? So, that there are no infections, that's a fact. Now, yes? Is somebody calling me? Okay. One of the things is that we do things which we can't believe. This picture, the black and white one, is somebody from a hospital, surgeon or a nurse, who's working in the OT, coming down. He has his cap on, he has his face mask hanging on his chest, he has just bought some sandwiches. We have a cup of coffee, because that's, of course, you can't eat your sandwich without coffee. He's got his scrub suit on, he's walking through the whole hospital with his clocks, where there is blood on the clocks. And when I had to be operated for an ordinary hernia operation, I told my surgeon a couple of things. And I explained why you don't walk with your face mask on your chest through a hospital. Because you can contaminate everything doing so. And then I was 2 years or 3 years later, I was in the same hospital, sitting down, having a cup of coffee in the cafeteria. And who is walking there with his face mask on his chest? My old surgeon. You can you could tell him anything you wanted. I'm trying to be a little bit careful in my words, because I don't want to upset you. You could tell them everything, and they don't do anything. Oh, sorry, yes? Am I crazy? No, thank you very much. Now, we have to deal with things, and this is, for instance, for me, a usual suspect why I could get a contamination or an infection at a patient. And that is wrong opening of my peel pack pouches, just pushing it through the paper. I use this instrument in the abdomen of a patient, and I'll tell you, you will have an infection because it touched an unsterile object. Or it brings a piece of cellulose inside the body of the patient, which could be kicked out because it doesn't belong there. Is that a fact or not? Right. So, if I sterilize something dirty, and there is a little particle on it, people say to me, yeah, what are you talking about? It's considered sterile. Is that can you put that inside the body of a patient even when it's sterile? No, it's a strange body, it will be kicked out. So, use the right way to open your package material. It's all about one thing, which I'll get back to later. Now, another usual suspect for me is the re-sterilization of single-use devices. maybe you can sterilize them again. Maybe your supplier can tell you, yes, you can put it after ethylene oxide in steam, there's no problem. The only biggest question is, how am I going to clean and disinfect it? So I can't. It's impossible. So there are a lot of questions you have to ask. The other thing is that every single product which you sterilize, or the industry, will change chemically and physically. But we in the hospitals, we can't control that. We don't have a laboratory to see what is happening, for instance, with my plastic tubes or syringes or whatever. I've seen a syringe exploding in the operating room because it was re-sterilized in steam. How stable are the materials? Has it been in contact with blood or viruses or human parts or any other dirt? And we don't have the record of how many times we have re-sterilized this medical device. Now, another usual suspect for me is hands. And I am extremely pleased that the World Health Organization in the world has stated that we have to go back to basics and wash our hands. And you take the Petri dish on there, where when you use only plain soap and you make a culture of the agar, you will see a complete hand. So wash it with those products which are supplied by your management, which is a 70% alcohol gel or whatsoever, and don't think that that is for nothing. It is the discipline. It is when your management takes a decision, follow it up. Now, this was in the newspaper. In Belgium, that's where I live, they have 4 times less infections with MRSA. That's only one of them. Methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus, or multi-resistant, which is just in my eyes. You can't kill it. And there are other ways. Must be, in the future, we have to have smart cards to prove how often we are washing our hands in the hospital. Now, this might be unusual for you. This is a study done in the United Kingdom, in the hospital in Westminster, and they have proven that if you use these horrible air dryers, that the amount of bacteria on your hands will increase up to 230%. So to be very honest, when I go to a toilet and there is one of those things, I take all the paper, or I walk out like this. Because I will not use those horrible machines, because there is no HEPA filter inside to take out the, well, what do you expect on the toilet? I'm not going to go in details. Now, there's another unusual. You know, we have very delicate instruments. They are sharp, they are very costly, and how am I going to protect them during sterilization? I am going to use, because that is what the industry is selling you, tip protectors. And we even drill a couple of holes in it because we keep our mouth shut. I guarantee to you that if you use these tip protectors, your instruments are not sterilized, they are not sterile, because there is too much pressure on the tip of your scissors or forceps or whatever. And yes, there are products which you can use. There is a product which is already existing 40 years, which is a foam pouch. You put them in there, and due to the fact that the bottom part is so open of structure, you will have penetration of your sterilant. There was a Dr. Eagle Lingas, because I think we forget one thing, and that is to test our instruments on a biofilm. Did anybody hear about biofilms? Okay. in normal circumstances, where you do normal, ordinary cleaning, and you use a brush from time to time, or you have, like, yeah, the majority of hospitals in Europe, they have washing and disinfecting machines, automatic, temperature and chemical. And you will not have a big biofilm. But if you have, then you have a problem. And you want to get rid of your biofilm because everything will grow in there. So, for me, that is a unusual stuff because a lot of people don't know about it. Now, you all recognize these machines, don't you? Or am I wrong? Okay, I'm just going. Did you do ever a test on all this equipment? Telephone you use every day, your laptop, your computer. You walk from the OR, you go sit down without washing your hands and make your report. But what about your mobile phone, which you use the whole day? And then you get home in the evening, and your daughter or son wants to play with your telephone because they don't have this beautiful iPhone or whatsoever. You give your child your telephone, which is contaminated from the hospital. Did you ever think about that? No. Or did you? Now, there are people laughing here. There must be a reason why they laugh. They recognize something. Now, this, you think maybe that this is Donald Trump. He looks a little bit like it, I agree. But no, he isn't. I saw this morning and I thought, hey, I've seen him a couple of times this week and heard about him. Anyway, he is only showing some resemblance. So don't talk tomorrow in your hospital about the fact that you have seen Donald Trump on the top of the operating room with two beautiful ladies next to him. So, and all the stories. Anyway. So then we go to the unusual suspects again. And we have to raise ourselves questions, not only in India, in the whole of the world. And I'm going to mention a couple. Do we use the right cleaning and disinfection systems? Are we sure? Did we validate this? You know what validation is? The industry has to validate everything they do from the start of the manufacturing to the end, and then if it has to be sterilized, it has to be validated. I have to prove that when I put something in a sterilizer or autoclave, that it will come out sterile. Oh no, I'm not going into those details because then I'm going to upset you. But validating has to start happening in hospitals. If I take, for instance, the minimal invasive surgery, everybody's talking about it. You know, it's so wonderful. You just put one side, and the other side, you blow up the, you blow up the patient, you do the operation. To be very honest, in Europe, I am not operated with these kind of scopes. The thing is, we have to start to understand if we clean in the right way. We have to prove it. It is exactly the same what the industry has to do. And maybe I'm rough, and you maybe don't like to hear this, I'm going to say it anyway, because I go back home tomorrow, and I'm gone, and I don't have to justify myself, is at the end of the day, a hospital is a manufacturing unit. Whatever we say, the ill patient is coming in, and if everything goes well, the patient will come out without another illness. So, I personally believe that we should talk a little bit more about a CSSD, as you know what it is. Now, can I ask one little question? Trying to be a little bit interactive, although I don't have the time for it. Who has ever visited the CSSD in their hospital? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Did you both put your finger up as well? You. Okay. Perfect. I'm proud. Because for me, the CSSD is the heart of the hospital. If the heart doesn't pump and the heart doesn't do its work, then the surgeons and the OR cannot operate. You will not have sterile medical devices. I think personally that we need to give the sterilization department more respect and more importance. There's no discussion about that, and I'm going to be honest again with you, it's everywhere in the world the same. Because there are thoughts like, oh, they are only the dishwashers from the OT. Am I wrong? Oh, they only do stupid packaging. We can put anybody on that important department. Don't forget, please, that the CSSD has become a very high-tech department. And they take care every single day that you get your sterile products. And everybody, every management I have talked to globally, they all think that the department, the sterilization department, is costly. It increases cost to the hospital. It's the other way around. It is cost saving for the hospital. And I can give you 10,000 examples and reasons why it's cost saving. Now, yeah, maybe we have to redefine CSSD and give it more importance. But at the same time, we need an evolution in the sterilization department. Maybe a revolution. I don't know. We can say as well, C stands for cleaning and disinfection. Number one and the most important thing today on a sterilization department. S for sterilization, of course. You can't do without sterilization. Storage. Is there anybody thinking about storage? And how important that is? No, no, no. We put 10 trays on top of each other. And then we ask ourselves why our packaging system is damaged and there are holes in it. So, unsterile. We just put it in like that. It doesn't matter. It's only a pouch. But that is what I've seen. That's where I've taken pictures of. And then, of course, we have to get disposal. We have to talk about that, and that is why we have changed CSSD. Now, focus, you know. We talk about time and not event-related. No, sorry, I say it is event-related when we lose sterility. We drop something on the floor, we pick it up, and we open it? No. As soon as it had been dropping on the floor, you throw it and send it back to the CSSD. And I can give you so many other examples where we just do and we don't think. Yes, there is a Dutch point system. You can calculate how long a product remains sterile in the way you wrap, you sterilize, you transport, and you have your storage. I already said, but for the CSSD, it would be absolutely great if they get the ISO 13485, which is quality system, medical devices, system requirements for regulatory purposes. I told you, you are a company. You're a manufacturer. And then I go back to the word validation. We have to validate our washing. We have to validate our packaging system. We have to validate the sealing equipment. And yes, the sterilizers have to be validated as well. Now, Why do we buy medical devices without pre-validating before it is bought, so that we know how to clean them, if they can be sterilized or not? We don't. Oh, we have the most wonderful story from one supplier, we just buy that one. And by the way, it's the right price as well. So, we need much more communication with the CSSD, the end user, the OT, that's your customer. By the way, are you from a sterilization department? No, okay, just a question. Because you agree with me all the time. And the device manufacturers. We have to sit together, we have to talk together. We develop new medical devices which are difficult to clean. What are we going to do? We spend millions on new equipment and then we can't clean them, we can't disinfect them. That's a problem. And then we have to create a sustainable unit, the sterilization department, in the hospital. Now, I find sustainable a little bit a fashion word, all right? Everything today is sustainable. But it is exactly the same for a CSSD. In the future, you will start to hear much more about parametric release, and I'm not going into the details, but hospitals will start to do that as well. And they do in Europe, they do in the United States, they do it in other countries around the globe as well. And then, I have put it mildly, the last one. You know what a flash sterilizer is? Something drops on the floor, we just put it in the sterilizer without packaging, we take it out, and the moment we take it out, it's unsterile again. So you can ask yourself why you will use a flash. But I understand you use them here, and it took a long time to get rid of them in Europe. And now it's happening in the States as well, because the States always use them. But slowly but surely they're disappearing. Now, infection prevention, the value to the patient. Because we always talk about one thing. Lower rates of infection.
Yeah.
Higher rates of survival.
We have achieved a lot of
Reduction in morbidity. Shorter hospital stay. Not living in a wheelchair or otherwise. You know what I mean by that, huh? Otherwise. It's called 6 pieces of wood. And they make a box of it. Yeah, you're stretched. More rapid return to health. That's the only thing we want. We don't want the patient to go into a hospital and to get another illness.
Very difficult to find which stage the patient has the complication.
What is the way forward?
So we develop a
Back to basics. What we have done in the previous years, I can go back to the times from Florence Nightingale,
Comment on that.
who cleaned the wards and reduced the amount of infections
Which said that
from soldiers who were fighting in the Crimean War. Joseph Lister, who started to do aseptic techniques and clean the patients before, oh, not clean, sorry, disinfect the patient before. We have to get global accreditation, because not everywhere there's accreditation. You do in this country. You have your hospital accredited. That's a good step forward. But we need to develop more global standards. I heard it today as well. Somebody said it today. We need more standards. We, the procurement staff, has to be trained on medical devices. Is there somebody from the procurement department? No. In the morning they buy, for instance, carrots, potatoes, your fantastic Indian food, and in the afternoon they have to take decisions about medical devices. Do you know everything about everything? No, you don't. So they need as well to be trained. And I'm going to be very honest to you. It is maybe on the next slide, but it's now coming up. It's not only in hospitals when they need more education. The industry the medical device industry, they need more education. Sometimes they don't even know their own answers on the product they sell in the market. That's unbelievable. And always ask your vendors to prove their claims. That's important. And that is cost nothing, you just ask. Another way forward is infection prevention versus infection control. We always talk about infection control. For me, that is too late. We are controlling an infection. We have to prevent infections. That is our job, preventing infections. And I think every single hospital in the world needs to have an infection preventionist, a hygienic nurse or whatsoever, who can come up with ideas to improve certain things. One little example. I go as a visitor to the OR, the OT. What do I get? These plastic overshoes. You do 2 steps and the holes are appearing in the plastic, but they're nice and cheap. You don't put anything on. You don't need anything then. Buy a good quality shoe cover. Or give them clogs which are washed and maybe even sterilized. Just a little example. Now, we have to work more with predefined single-use procedure packs and sets. Just for the simple reason that you work with barriers. Barriers in the OT are the most important things. And then we can talk about all the IT resources, as mobile apps, touch tablets. There are even today sterilizable keyboards. So you can clean them, you can disinfect them, you can put them in the autoclave, and you have a sterile one. So why not? Patient bed disinfection machines. You know what I mean by that? Washing the... Exactly. That's important. You can't do it by hand. It is a terrible job as well for the nurse. And the most important thing is shared learning, motivation for the people working in the hospital, reward them, give them recognition. Everybody needs, from time to time, a clap of the shoulder and make them happy. They did something right. There are tools for them. And they're developed by the World Health Organization, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and the European Center for Disease and Prevention. And all those kinds that cost money. And that we should take in consideration if we make the total cost up in the hospital. I said that, I'm not going to, but I think as well that if we go back to basics, there are a lot of very good techniques which we can introduce. Again, it doesn't cost anything. Some things we used already 40, 50, 60 years ago, and they're still valuable. And then I think, do not reinvent the wheel. And what I mean by that is there are so many standards around the world. You don't have to do all that work again, because the whole world was in the same situation as India. And a patient in Tokyo is not different from a patient in Singapore or in Amsterdam. let's go to bed. That's me, being operated on my foot. Back to basics, education and discipline. But I think as well there is something else, and that is listening. We don't listen anymore. I am blamed every single day that I'm not listening anymore. So I know that I don't do it always neither. We always talk about the safety of the patient. The Congress is called patient safety. What about the staff? With all those horrible diseases I've shown you. So I like to make it patient safety, staff safety. Now I hope that the next one works. Oh, people want to have references. Those are all references I have taken in a lot of my slides. And yes, I went back to 1975 and I stopped in 1999 because after that, nothing new was published. But nothing new. And that is back to basics. Can I have sound, please?
Colegas, pida la foto. El paciente yo creo que tiene algo aquí en la... Yo creo que hay que operar aquí. Bueno, ¿quién es tu hombre? ¿Operar? Bueno, si el otro día con la mina nos estaba diciendo... Esto fue lo tuyo, tú tomaste determinación, yo vi que... Pero si no hay ninguna mancha, ¿eh?
I'm so pleased that you laugh. Because there is another thing in life. We don't laugh anymore. We always have to be serious. If I make a joke somewhere and somebody looks at me, why are you laughing? I came once into a country and I went through the X-ray and I laughed. I couldn't stop laughing because it was so stupid. And that was long time ago. The guy came to me and he said, if you laugh once more, we'll take you behind and you're not going to catch your plane. So, I think I've come to the end of my story. Chain is only as strong as the weakest link. And everybody around this room, they are all in infection prevention. So, thank you very much for your attention. I hope I wasn't too boring. And if so, it's too late now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Team. It was a really very dynamic presentation, I must say that. And I can share with you all that he is a Formula One racer. That's why he's so dynamic, and he hates to play slow game like golf. And what a presentation it was, wonderful. It will stick to our brains for a long time. We can take home the message of, CSSD is the heart of the hospital. Hand washing is back to the basics is very important. And, whenever we are buying any equipment, we must know about their sterilization procedures and their ability to get sterilized. So these are the few important basic messages, he has given us. I would request if any questions from your side, the topic is open for discussion. Thank you.
I'd like to thank the chairpersons and the speakers. I request Dr. Bama, Group DMS, to hand over a memento to Dr. Alan Goldman. Thank you. We'll have a short break for refreshments and we will assemble back at 6:30 p.m. for the joint plenary and award session. His Excellency, the Governor of Tamil Nadu, is joining our plenary and awards program. So please do stay back and enjoy the program.